Greetings. My name is Lola Frey. I am a data analyzer 2.0 from Dark Tech. I will now continue the series titled, A Story, Chapter 9. Miranda drove Ethan to her house. She looked at him and saw that he was distraught. "It's okay, Ethan," Miranda said. "I understand. You must feel like you have lost your brother. I know what it feels like to lose someone dear. You can stay in the car for a little while to collect your thoughts." "Okay, Miranda," Ethan said. "Thank you." Miranda got out of the car and went into the house. She dialed her husband and glanced out the window. "Hello, honey," James said. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, James," Miranda said. "I want to let you know that Ethan seems to be hiding something. He knows something. To find out, I am going to have to do it." "Kiss him?" James responded. "I am not talking about kissing," Miranda said. There was a silent pause. "You do what needs to be done," James said. "I love you so much, James," Miranda expressed. "I love you so much too, Miranda," James replied. Miranda put her phone on the counter and went back outside to the car. She opened the passenger door and smiled at Ethan. "Ethan," Miranda said. "Guess what?" "What?" Ethan said as he lifted his head. "My husband will be away at work," Miranda said. "He's got several flights to do. The house is ours. I have something important to share with you. Meet me in my bedroom." Miranda went back into the house as Ethan stared at her with an open mouth and wide eyes. She reached her bedroom and sat on her bed. The sunlight shined through the window. Her hands grazed the red sheets of the bed. Their eyes met, Miranda and Ethan's. She motioned for him to come sit by her. When he sat, she rubbed his back. "Ethan," she said, "I can tell something is on your mind." Ethan remained silent. "Is there something about your brother that you haven't mentioned?" Miranda continued. "You can tell me anything." "I don't know," Ethan mumbled. "You can trust me, Ethan," Miranda insisted. "I've never told anyone this before," Ethan said. "I couldn't bring myself to telling you if we weren't close." With a gentle touch on the hand, Miranda put a bit of ease on Ethan. "I saw my brother with a girl some time ago," Ethan explained. "I found out he has been using this abandoned shack he found. He never introduced the girl to me or our family. I saw the lure with the girl while I was out at the mall. I saw him driving her the direction of that wooden shack. She looked like she was in distress." "Did you find out the girl's name?" Miranda asked. "No," Ethan replied. "My brother wouldn't talk to me about it after I'd asked. That's when he really started to avoid me." "What else can you tell me about the girl?" Miranda responded. "She was blonde," Ethan said. "And, now that I think about it, she kind of looked like you." A single tear fell from Miranda's eye. But her calm demeanor stayed the same. "Where is the shack?" Miranda asked. "I will send you the directions," Ethan said. "I keep it in my phone notes. It's actually quite hidden." "Ethan," Miranda said. "There is something I need to tell you." Ethan looked into Miranda's eyes. She wiped her eyes. "Be strong," Miranda continued. "Our meeting was no accident or coincidence. My daughter disappeared some months ago. The police did what they could, but they had no leads. In the end, they could do nothing. My husband and I took things into our own hands. We knew what your brother looked like, but that's all we had, along with the knowledge you were his brother. My husband and I decided that I would enter your life, with nothing but my beauty as an instrument, a weapon. In time, I would hopefully learn more about your brother through you. Your brother is responsible for my daughter's disappearance." "None of it was true?" Ethan asked. "We will talk later," Miranda said. She got up and left the room. Ethan followed her. She grabbed her phone and went out the front door. Where are you going? Ethan asked as he stood on the porch. I am going to the shack, Miranda said. Ethan remained on the porch, standing alone as he watched the car drive away. Meanwhile, Willow sat quietly in the truck of Aluo. She turned to look at him. He was staring silently at the road. You took a pretty long detour, Willow joked. Why aren't you taking us back to my car? Aluo remained silent and unfazed. With an increasing heart rate, she discreetly turned her phone's camera at Aluo. She turned the camera on and pressed the screen. Her heart sank, with widened eyes. A flash went off and a picture of Aluo was taken. Frozen with nervousness, Willow watched for a reaction out of the corner of her eye. After a few seconds of nothing, she proceeded to send the picture to Marvin with a message that read, Is this the guy you were talking about? Please say no. Taking pictures of me? Aluo asked. A faint smile appeared on his face. He slightly raised his eyebrows. Yes, Willow admitted. I didn't turn my flash off. Silly me. What's going through your mind? Aluo probed. I kinda don't know how to say it, Willow mumbled. At the buzz of her phone, Willow darted her eyes at its screen. She looked at the new text message that read, Yes. That's the guy. Is that a picture from his social media? No, Willow texted. He must have spotted me watching your girl and I became a person of interest. You'll have to do, Aluo sighed. Where are you taking me? Willow asked. We're almost there, Aluo replied. A car joined in beside them. Willow turned her head to that car and saw a young woman driving. The young woman was texting. Her focus was far from Willow. Please look over here, Willow mouthed while watching the girl. It was Angela. Suddenly, Angela's phone turned off. Come on, she shouted. Her attention turned to the people in the car beside her, like drivers do. Please call the police, Willow mouthed. Angela quietly gasped. You need help for real? She asked. With a nod from Willow, Angela turned into a neighborhood. A young man having a pleasant conversation with an elder in an electric wheelchair caught the eye of Angela. It was Blake. She came to a fierce stop beside him as he walked on the sidewalk. Excuse me, Angela called out. Is everything okay? Blake asked. Angela hastened out of her car. I need to use your phone, she said as she came to Blake. My phone died. And there is a girl who wanted me to call the police. I think she's being kidnapped. Seriously? Blake responded. Okay. I am calling the police now. Elsewhere, Aluo parked the car. Get out, he said. Willow stayed in the car. She looked around. Her surroundings were trees. In front of the car was a small shed-like exterior that could barely fit a small car. I said get out, Aluo repeated. He opened the passenger door. Willow didn't move. Aluo grabbed her by the arm and pulled her out. Stop it! Willow shouted. Stop resisting, Aluo commanded. You can't win. You're lost in these woods. Willow walked in front of Aluo as he guided her to the shack. The shack was wooden and worn down. There was no door but a wide square opening. The inside had tools and a counter on each side. Between the counters, in the aisle, was a large dog cage. While firmly holding Willow's arm, Aluo opened the cage and guided Willow in. You are unbelievable, Willow said. You know that. You'll probably get me more than 10,000, Aluo said. Why are you doing this? Willow asked. Wouldn't you like to know? Aluo responded. Aluo began messing with some tools on the counter. Willow looked at her phone. She still wasn't getting a signal. Her feet were planted on the ground, but she couldn't stand up straight. In the corner of her eye, she spotted a dusty phone, similar to her own. Before she knew it, Aluo attempted to snatch the phone from her. It fell on the floor and cracked. The back of the phone popped off and out came the battery. Both Willow and Aluo darted for the phone. Aluo grabbed the phone. Willow grabbed the battery. Sometimes, the signal actually works out here, Aluo said. Can't have you bringing company. Whatever, Willow retorted. There's a certain spot in here that receives enough signal to make a call, Aluo said. Try not to make too much noise. With attention on his own phone, Willow looked back at the dusty phone she saw. She quickly reached for it and picked it up. Her eyes turned back to her kidnapper. He appeared to be texting someone. With a sweaty thumb, Willow pressed a button to turn on the phone. I figured I was going to have to do this, she thought. She took out her phone battery. She replaced the dusty phone's battery with her own. No room for mistakes this time. Aluo began talking on the phone. I got one, he said. I am in, right? Good, good. Willow pressed a button on the side of the phone to turn it on. She sat down and covered the speaker to muffle any sound that may come out as the phone became operational. She kept her eyes on Aluo. After a small tune, Willow looked at the phone. The home screen of the phone was of a young blonde girl. She was smiling happily with her father, brother, and mother, Miranda. The phone had no lock. Willow looked through the phone messages. She then stumbled across a note app. In it were several notes. Willow turned her back to Aluo as he began walking outside, occupied on his phone conversation. Curiosity piquing, Willow began reading through the notes. After several minutes, Aluo came back into the shack. Everything comfy? He asked. Let me out, Willow said. No, Aluo responded. I am going to sell you. What happened to you? Willow asked. Why are you like this? We live in a world with all sorts of corrupt people, Aluo said. We live in a world where the statement, I love you, can be a lie, and be followed by hurt and abuse. Then why be a part of it? That group, Willow replied. Don't you get it? Aluo responded. We are all a part of the problem. This world's problem is us, and our wretched desires that arises within us, some of which are hard to control. As for me, I couldn't stop if I wanted to. It doesn't have to be like this, Willow pleaded. There is no negotiating, Aluo said. Before I call for my acquaintances to pick you up, I am going to have to break you. Mentally. You'll need to be submissive for the upcoming work you have. Willow remained silent. His attention went back to his phone and he leaned on the counter. At the window, someone peeked their head to see inside. Willow held in a gasp. It was Miranda. With a racing heart, Willow sat still and glanced at Aluo, who was still looking at the screen of his phone and texting. Miranda stopped peeking through the window. She put her hand over her heart and took a deep breath. Her feet began to move. Soon, she stood at the shack's entrance. Aluo lifted his head. He squinted. Miranda stood boldly. What on earth are you doing? Miranda asked. You look familiar, Aluo responded. I should, Miranda said. What did you do to my daughter? This is my second time doing this, Aluo said. It's my second attempt to get into that group. So you must be referring to that other girl. You don't even remember her name. Miranda shouted. Of course, I do, Aluo said. Where is she? Miranda cried. I am sorry to tell you this, Aluo said, but she's gone. Miranda took a step forward. Did that hit a nerve? Aluo faintly smiled. It wasn't intentional. She fought back. Miranda darted to Aluo and pushed him back to the cage. I will definitely get into the group with you, Aluo said. I hope you realize that I can't let you leave. Sirens could be heard. Now, we can't let you leave, Willow said as she grabbed his legs from the cage. Miranda rushed over and held Aluo down. Let go. Aluo yelled. You had this coming, Miranda said. Police cars drove up to the shack. Aluo stopped resisting. Chapter 10. The sun was setting. Miranda stood off in the distance from the shack. Her arms were crossed. There were several police cars silently flashing lights. The police put Aluo in the car with handcuffs. He had his head down. Willow walked up to Miranda. They found a body somewhere behind the shack, Willow said. Miranda put her hand over her mouth and closed her eyes. I heard police say a boy called, Willow said. You parked your car on the side of the road in front of the path that leads here. Thanks to you, they found us. Are you okay? Miranda asked. Yes, Willow said. I have something for you. Willow held out her hand. Miranda's eyes lit up when she saw the phone. That's my daughter's phone, Miranda said. I found it behind the cage, Willow explained. There is a message in there for you and your family. Miranda took the phone and looked at the message. If you guys ever get this, I want you to know that I love you. Bro, you are the best little brother I could have ever asked for. Daddy, please be strong, and be strong for Mom. Mom, you are an inspirational woman. I am grateful that I had you all as my family. Goodbye. For now. I love you. Miranda began to cry. Her face was red. Willow put her arms around the tearful mother and comforted her. Sometime later, Miranda was in court, sitting beside her son and husband. They had sat through a long trial and the verdict was about to be read. She held her head high as the judge sentenced Aluo to 50 years for second-degree murder and a few other charges. A young woman began wailing and screaming uncontrollably. Miranda did not look back to see who it was. The security escorted the aggressive woman out of the courtroom. A few days after the trial, Blake was just walking away from the park next to an elderly man in a wheelchair. They were both smiling and chatting. At the park, Marvin was sitting on a bench next to Claire. I realize what I was doing wasn't right, Marvin, Claire said. You're my fiancé. I was spending all that time with another guy, when I should not have been giving time like that to any other guy than you. Thank you for looking out for me and being patient. I love you. I love you too, Claire, Marvin smiled. Sitting at the mall was Angela and her friend, chatting over a hot pizza. Elsewhere, in a tall building in town, Miranda was handing a paper off to Ethan. They were both wearing business attire. You sure you can handle the workload? Miranda asked. It's no problem, Ethan replied. I got it covered. As Ethan left, Miranda took an elevator to the first floor. There, she met up with Willow. Good news, Willow, Miranda said. You got the job. Thank you so much, Miranda, Willow cheered. I'm looking forward to working with you. Miranda looked out the window as a bird flew by into a bright blue sky.